Hope everyone's doing well. We're nearing the end, so we'll keep it fun and exciting. So we'll go ahead and get started. We've got about 27 minutes. We'll start off with brief introductions, and then we'll dig into European energy markets, why we're all here. So I'm Amanda Cavallari. Have worked in this space for about 5 years. Got in through privacy, and then got into Bitcoin specifically on the fund side and the startup side, specifically Lightning, and then mining a couple years ago. So I'm on the board of directors for CleanSparks. You just heard from our CEO, Zach, and have gotten to know quite a few amazing people in this space. But the European energy market is something that's really fascinating this year, so looking forward to the wisdom here.
All right. My name is Juan Ibañez. I'm the Chief of Staff at the DLT Science Foundation, Foundation for Blockchain Education and Research. I'm also the Center Administrator at the University College London Center for Blockchain Technologies. And I do some research on blockchain sustainability, specifically Bitcoin sustainability, and more specifically, mining with variable renewable energy. I'm trying to improve the state of the art of the scientific literature. The quality there is not great, so giving my 2 cents on that.
Thanks, Juan. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brad Van Voorhees. I'm a co-founder of Sustainable Bitcoin Protocol. I actually came into this out of a background of about a decade in environmental sustainability and the energy markets. I built a sustainability department for a Fortune 200 company over the course of about a decade. And then I just got very into Bitcoin and particularly interested in the energy component of it. That's really what sucked me in. So really excited to talk about energy here in Europe today with a great crowd and a great group of panelists.
Hello everyone, my name is Romain. I'm a co-founder and CEO of a Bitcoin miner called SATO Technologies, started in 2017. Originally I'm French. We mine from Canada. I live in New York and I'm also American. Today we run 20 megawatt of energy, close to 0.6 exahash, a little bit less than 0.2% of the global network, maybe 1.5 maybe now. We are publicly listed on the TSXV under the ticker SATO. We are here to grow. We are operators. We want to grow even bigger, way bigger than where we are. And we're looking at various places, including Europe, even so it's a difficult market. We'll talk about it, but it's a good time to build in this industry.
Okay, so to get started, I think we'll just kind of have an overview of the last year of markets here and maybe where some new energy development projects are going in and how that looks with transmission and potentiality for Bitcoin mining. But I think over the last year, from what I've been able to see, there's been a massive decrease in mining in Europe, especially the last couple of years, and a lot of that has to do with the instability in energy pricing and it's not profitable for most. So a lot of folks that maybe they had small sites in Eastern Europe or different parts of Europe have left or stopped mining altogether because maybe they had even outdated machines at this point in time anyway. So it just de facto, the hash rate left and has been moving from Europe. But with that said, there are some places where it is still interesting, right? There's, Iceland, there's Sweden, and I would love to hear your perspective on what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as mining has gone more professional and they have become a distinct actor, there were just some general factors in Europe that discouraged mining because as profit margins started also falling, operational expenses, taxes, salaries, energy prices, it became much more decisive in your ROI. And in the past few years, with the phasing out of nuclear partially and invasion of Ukraine, we have seen energy prices increase even more, discouraging mining even further. But before this happened, there was already a trend towards more and more negatively priced hours intermittently in the European market. This was increasing, and it has been obfuscated in the past few years due to these developments. I'm expecting we are already seeing the return of negatively priced hours this year a bit, and this is going to start feeling much more in the next few years. Imagine that when the war broke out, Lots of companies profited a lot from high spot prices in energy. This year, they are profiting from hedge contracts signed last year. So even if spot prices are lower, they still have a lagging high income from last year. But in next year, they're going to start feeling it much more. And the focus in Europe is in variable renewable energy, which exacerbates these trends. I see Nordic countries and Germany as very promising jurisdictions for this.
Okay, that's interesting. And I know you've got a lot of...
No, I think it's totally right. One thing, and to come back also to your point about why we have no more Bitcoin miners in Europe. I mean, we have some miners in some Nordic countries, but it's true that the energy is our main resource. In order to scale, we need to have energy that is not only well priced, but also stable, because we want our data centers to run forever. However, we have a magic power. We have curtailment. We have the possibility to give back energy to the grid when they need it. And it's great for the municipalities, the cities who are hosting us, but it's also great for the network in general, because when we need to give back the energy when we do curtailment, it's usually to give it back to the population. Where we mine from Quebec, it's mainly in winter, but sometimes in Texas, it's in summer. So in this way, the Bitcoin network is always performant and more protected than before. And I think what happens in other countries will probably happen in Europe, and we will see it more and more data centers being built in Europe in the coming years.
And it'd be interesting a little bit to know, what's going on with the energy mix in Europe, right? So I know, in Germany, for example, there was a nuclear plant that was shut down, and now they're starting to turn on coal plants, which is quite ironic, I feel. I think, to me, nuclear is the future of energy for humanity, so it's been a little interesting to watch that. But just other projects that are coming out. I think nuclear is going up in Sweden, or... it would be nice to know if there's potentiality in that. I know there's a few companies that are European miners. There's, for example, there's Genesis, and they've been mining, as far as I know, at least 4 continents around the world for a long time. Maybe not all at once, the 4 continents, but is there any activity in Germany? Probably not, right? So it's interesting to see how there may be companies that are based in these places that have the talent and are creating jobs in their locations. But it would be interesting to know if any of these new energy developments, whether it's more intermittent strategies or more consistent, be the first customer at a new site before there's transmission lines built out, if you feel we'll see any of that.
Maybe I can touch a little bit on this. It's actually amazing to see how much renewables are being developed in Europe. In 2022, there was about 40 gigawatts of solar that was installed during the course of the year. That's a 50% increase from 2021, and I think it's going to stay on that trajectory. But that also means that there's this intermittent nature of the renewables, and in turn, there's really significant curtailment. And in fact, just in August of this year, an association of renewable energy generators wrote to the EU expressing concerns around the amount of curtailment and what it means for their business. They wrote to, I think, Katja Simpson, who's leads energy in the EU. You'd know better than I would, actually. But and so I think for me, this is really interesting, and I think it's also interesting because the EU historically has been this leader on renewable energy and sort of climate-related focus. I don't want to use that bad acronym. I'm going to stay away from that for now. So, but they've been a leader, and for me, it just seems like Bitcoin is this amazing natural fit to help deal with this curtailment issue. And it feels like, if there was the right progressive mindsets in place, that Bitcoin has this natural opportunity to come help address this massive curtailment problem, or need, I should say, that is seemingly exponentially increasing year over year. And so, while Amanda said there was a decrease in mining, and she's over the last 18 months, and is absolutely right, I wonder whether, maybe that can change and it can start to go the other direction if it's looked at in the right way, maybe now there's a bit more clarity in terms of Mika and whether there's any legal hurdles in mining. I think Mika gave it a little bit of clarity to miners to say, like, okay, it is feasible now. You're not going to get banned from mining. It never made it into the Mika bill. So,
but if I may, I think also we need to go over Bitcoin. When we talk about energy, we need to talk about data centers in general. It's also AI. It's also HPC. We live in a world where we will need to have more energy for our computing power. Computing power, Bitcoin mining, it's exceptionally an amazing technology. It settles every 10 minutes. It works everywhere in the world. It's being adopted. We are at the beginning of it. But it's also the new technologies coming with AI and HPC, like ChatGPT type of application. When we'll have a world using ChatGPT the same way they are using Google, the computing power is going to explode. And if we can bring a solution that will englobe, that will work with both solutions, by which the Bitcoin mining will be the way we will be able to bring back the energy when it's needed, but the energy for data centers, for AI and HPC always remain constant, then we can win. Because at the very local level, which is also important, and this is what we see even more in North America, where we operate most of the publicly listed miners, we are very professional, and it shows in the budget of the cities we are in. And when you have a data center, when you have a Bitcoin miner at your local level, we are bringing revenues, we are using energy that was unused before, unsold before. We are creating jobs, yes, not a lot of jobs, but the people we pay them more than the average people in the towns that we are on. We work with lots of external people. We spend probably $5 million near our centers for building like 5 megawatts of energy. We are also reusing the energy and the heat that our computing power creates to reintegrate it into the cycle of the municipalities we are working with. So at the end, all of the benefits are so great that now municipalities are starting to realize the benefit of having people like us in the market. I might be optimistic, but I think, again, we were going to see more local people coming to us and asking us to develop a center that works well for their capacity of electricity and their town, etc.
So one thing, like a couple things here to look at. The cost of a traditional data center is very different from the cost, to build Bitcoin mining. There's basic data center, and then there's like tier 3 or, So the interesting part about Bitcoin mining specifically is because it's one of the I think really the first load that can scale quickly in these locations, like physically move, right, megawatts at a time to where these new sites are, where there's stranded energy. Like that's a huge difference compared to data centers as well, right? Because you can just plop these things around pretty quickly. The other thing is the R&D that goes into Bitcoin mining, whether that's whether that's actually the software that is working with energy fluctuation, or that's something like immersion cooling that we're able to experiment with. So this level of R&D that goes into Bitcoin mining has these ancillary benefits to data centers and a lot of other industries. So I think it's really important for Europe and I mean a lot of Western countries are looking at regulations, which would be nice to go into next a little bit. That are maybe putting a lot of downward pressure on this market, when really if it were embraced, or when it is embraced, it's going to help them, benefit AI, all sorts of tech industries that are trying to grow in their regions as well.
Yeah, one of the first things I encountered when I started researching Bitcoin and energy markets was that, I started looking at energy prices and at the curtailment periods, and I started to see that they were not a perfect match. So sometimes you had curtailment by the grid operator without having negative prices, and that's because the transmission capacity had been exceeded. So the more penetration that there is of renewables, and especially variable renewables, which is a way that much of Europe has chosen to go, these problems are going to exacerbate. And other energy buyers that are being looked into, think of water desalination, CO2 sequestration, green hydrogen. They are facing serious profitability problems, logistical issues, and in the United States and Canada, we see there an experience of a viable business model. in terms of regulation, Germany has made these decisions about nuclear that ended up leading to gas dependency, and Russia. But also there has been a lot of subsidization of variable renewables, solar and wind, and this means really a big expense for the German government. Also, like batteries, large-scale, long-term batteries, they are heavily subsidized, and there is a minimum income guaranteed for all the energy sellers in Germany under the German energy law. So all of these things are not sustainable, and regulation is going to have to be a bit more flexible in the future. Otherwise, Germany, for instance, is not going to be able to sustain it. And in the context of MICA that you were mentioning, luckily, I think it has been less aggressive than it could have been. But the European Commission launched a tender request last week for research studies on crypto asset energy consumption, where they are obviously expecting researchers to provide excuses for an attack on Bitcoin. So all of these things, all of these evidence, all of these cases that we can see and point to are really important to the development.
I think they can do all the researches they want. They need to know how much energy they want to transform in the next 10 to 20 years for digital things, Bitcoin, AI, HPC, Netflix, video games. How do you do it? How do you use the energy that is not used before? How do you make efficiencies in other? And it's not only us, Bitcoin miners. I mean, you have lots of data centers already in Europe. Energy is here. We use energy that is unused. We know how to give it back to the grid when it's needed. The only question they need to ask is how much energy they want and how to use companies like us to build infrastructure on the long term. Will be coming when they are ready. I mean, right now, if Europe is closed, we're not going to push it, but we want to do it, and we think we can bring lots of stuff.
And then, you know, what would be interesting as well to discuss is just like trends we're seeing globally, right? And, you know, whether it's what's happening in the U.S. or I know there's a lot of interest in developing mining in Africa and emerging countries. And part of that is because, you know, as we look at like ESG, right, it's supposed to be a three-legged stool of environment, social, governance. It's like, okay, well, Bitcoin scores 10 out of 10 with governance. It's the most like pure governance that I think humanity's ever created, or whoever created an alien Satoshi, who knows, right? But we've got, and then on the social side, mining has been really interesting because when you look at mining, we use 0.1 to 0.2% of the electricity generated in the world, and you look at this in a pie chart, and about a quarter of all electricity generated in the world is stranded. So we're using that stranded energy, which is this teeny little bit in something that's already wasted for the most part, right? And so we're so minuscule when compared to like the banking system, healthcare, these other huge industries. But because we can curtail, we're able to stabilize the grid that way outweighs our usage. So the benefits that we bring to grids far outweighs, you know, the amount of energy that's being used. And it allows these new energy projects to be developed. I hope more nuclear, like small nuclear reactors. I think that's, you know, really if we're looking at the future of humanity, I don't think it's wind farms. I don't think it's solar. But that's what these regulations are rewarding right now, and these incentives are. But it would be nice to hear global trends and kind of what you're seeing as well.
Yeah, I think, you know, touching on what Juan was saying in regards to storage, you know, there's a massive discrepancy between the amount of storage that's being produced versus the amount of generation being produced for renewables, particularly here in Europe. You know, there's in the EU they'll have like 60 gigs of storage by 2040 or something. It's you know, it's minuscule in comparison to the amount of generation. So you know, I think again this ability to draw in and consume this excess power either as a base load that can, you know, be elastic and turn on, turn off very rapidly, or conversely, you know, using that curtailed energy, you know, I think that is the future. And I think, you know, what Amanda was saying in terms of how Bitcoin mining is, you know, it's sort of at the forefront of all of this this engagement between data centers and the energy space. Like, it's that first first one to sort of push the envelope and try new things. An example of that, I think, for example, would be the use of stranded and wasted gas. That's really amazing, and now we're seeing that was, of course, created by Bitcoin mining companies and creative Bitcoiners that are really searching for this stranded energy sources. But now that's being moved over and used for other types of compute. We're seeing it rapidly happen where a lot of these miners are actually diversifying their business from 100% Bitcoin mining to Bitcoin plus other forms of high-intensity compute. So I think that's really fascinating. And ultimately, I think that what's really critical is that, and I think this pertains very much so to here in the EU, and in regards to what Juan was saying about the EU's recent ask for scientists and others to put forward proposals. I like the way you were talking about it, in order to attack Bitcoin. That was a very interesting way to say it, but yeah. So I think what's important is really the gathering of data of all forms, whether that's the data use of renewables, of stranded energy, like having this very, very carefully detailed in databases that are available to all stakeholders, because ultimately that's the way that we can sort of prove our point and then prove the value that Bitcoin mining gives to society and to the grid sort of at large.
Also, in terms of global trends, and by the way, this tender from the European Commission, it does say that at one point, it asks for scientific evidence, right, a study, but then it asks for recommendation to move away from more energy-intensive consensus mechanisms. So, so it's not my invention. But also in terms of the global trends, I would say there are some trends in mining, like the commodification of ASIC equipment and the fall in profit margins for miners that are going to be really interesting. The deceleration, the rate of increase of the efficiency of the chips, the clearance of the chip supply chain, problems that happened during the pandemic. Although now we need to see what happens with AI, right? And whether we compete with them in terms of chip demand, also in terms of variable renewables. There's an argument to be made that low uptime miners using wind energy are going to compete with methane miners because they are all going to go for the cheapest ASICs. But these are all trends to be taken into account. But I think that overall, it is about a reduction of profit margins that makes all of this much more interesting.
Also, to your point before, we're so small that the chips we make for Bitcoin mining have no impact in the chip in the world. I mean, we're talking about iPhone and cars and this kind of stuff. How many miners we have? 10 million rigs? 15 million? Not even. It's easy to calculate. 425 exahash, around 50 terahash. Who can do the math in their head? But it's small. That's so chip. Yeah, it's also. Again, as you said, let's see the studies that will be made.
Yeah, I think some of the things that we talked about as well is kind of, a lot of countries are starting to possibly over-regulate and push their best and brightest out of their countries, right? But beyond that, beyond the talent side on the tech side, and you have, at least in the U.S., we have a lot of these towns that lost manufacturing over the decades to China, for example, and now Bitcoin mining has come into these old aluminum smelting plants or different areas or manufacturing. And so it's looking at these places that their economies were completely decimated, and now you have an industry that's forward-oriented, that's future-oriented jobs, and they're higher-paying jobs than what's been going on there at the least, and moving up, and they're multidisciplinary. And what Bitcoin mining can do for these communities is it's astronomical, whether it's tax dollars and jobs. So I would just love to see more of that. And I know as we have about 3 minutes left, so if each of you have a closing remark, that'd be great.
I mean, just about Europe, it's true also. There is a huge debate right now about energy in France, Germany, between lots of countries, where it is produced, where is it coming from, where is it going to. It's true. It's very much on the main one of the main topic. So let's see what we can do and what kind of time frame. In the meantime, we'll just be working on being more efficient, because if we're not efficient, we die. So that's also the beauty of our business. We bring efficiency in everything we do, and it's extremely exceptional because we go from the very little, nanometers at the chip level, at the ASIC level, to huge fans and huge energies that we transform, and data centers, and we run lots of computers. It's really interesting. We'll continue developing our business as much as we can, as best as we can, and we hope, hopefully, to be able to do it in Europe soon.
I think on the theme of sort of giving back to communities and helping lift communities up, actually the best company that I know that's doing that is CleanSpark, where Amanda's on the board. So you'll be able to talk to that far more fluently with details than I could. But I think in the state of Georgia, CleanSpark's done just an incredible job to create jobs, teach people, upskill workers. And I think that can translate almost anywhere in the world, ultimately. Really train people to, be savvy technicians and code. And I hope that here in Europe, that's seen. And, politicians are aware that that actually is something that Bitcoin brings to communities. So I'll leave it at that. But I hope more Bitcoin mining comes back to Europe. I think there's a lot of value creation for communities and for the grid and for society at large.
And I want to take something that Romain said about efficiency. We've heard also in the previous talks how important efficiency is to maintain a high uptime, how increasingly important it is, right? It pushes you out of the market if you don't have the uptime that you need to have, and that's why immersion cooling, for instance, is so important. But now there's a new form of efficiency that might come, which is not maximizing the number of Bitcoin mined, but your dollar revenue if you're an energy company. And I am very optimistic about the outlook for this in Europe. I think that renewable energy companies are going to start looking into this more and more. But there's one thing that we need to do, and it's take successful cases, convert them into evidence, talk to regulators, and do our bit.
And look at the local level. Look at the benefit we are bringing at the local level. And from there, it will go and become global for a use that is global anyway. But at the local level, we win. They love to work with us for all the things we mentioned. Yeah. And that's how you win in the future. Zach was talking about it before. That's what they do in Georgia.
And that goes to, no, this is good. So I think that goes back to, what is Bitcoin? It's a peer-to-peer technology. So local, start local. And I think focusing on education within our communities has a pretty big impact. So whether that's students or local government officials, but it's I think what we will start to see is these countries or these regions that are negative around this will lose their best and brightest, and that's how they'll learn, right? And so I think we will see more migration of Bitcoin mining away from places where it's becoming more difficult because we don't really have a choice, right? And then there may be kind of the pendulum may swing back the other way where they're like, wait, come back, we messed up. So we'll see how that happens, and that plays out over the next couple cycles. And I have a feeling maybe in 10 years we're having a very different conversation on this stage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miami, for the last 3 years in this amazing city. The whole world shut down, but Miami welcomed us with open arms. We want to show Bitcoin to the whole world. We are taking the conference on the road to set the stage for Bitcoin in a new city. Nashville. Bitcoin 2024 is coming to Nashville in Tennessee, a city that is known as a music and freedom city. Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville from July 25th to 27th.